Alright, here's a wild thought. What if everything around you, your phone, the chair you're sitting on, even the air you're breathing, has some tiny form of consciousness? Sounds crazy, right? But what if it's true? There's this mind-blowing theory called Panpsychism that suggests consciousness could be in everything. Yep, you heard that right. Even in a rock. In today's video, we're going to dive into this idea, and trust me, it might just change the way you see the entire universe. Let's get into it. So, what exactly is Panpsychism? Let's break it down. The word comes from Greek. Pan means everything, and psyche means mind or soul. Essentially, Panpsychism is the belief that consciousness, or mind, is a basic part of reality. It's not just something humans or animals have. It might be present in all matter, right down to the smallest particles. This might sound strange at first, but stick with me, because it's actually a fascinating way of thinking about consciousness. The core idea is that even simple things like atoms, electrons, or a rock may have some tiny basic form of experience. You might be asking, why does this idea matter? Why should I care whether atoms or rocks have some tiny form of consciousness? Well, Panpsychism matters because it challenges the way we typically think about consciousness. Normally, we think consciousness comes from complex brains, like yours and mine. Scientists often explain consciousness as something that emerges when a brain reaches a certain level of complexity, like in humans or animals. But here's the thing. Science still doesn't fully understand how consciousness works. It's one of the biggest mysteries in philosophy and neuroscience today. How can physical matter, like the brain, give rise to something as intangible as conscious experience? This question is known as the hard problem of consciousness. Panpsychism offers a potential solution. Instead of saying that consciousness appears out of nowhere when matter becomes complex, it suggests that consciousness was always there, even in simple things like particles. Panpsychism isn't a new idea. In fact, it has a long history that stretches back thousands of years. Many ancient cultures and philosophers believed that mind or soul existed everywhere in nature. For example, early Greek philosophers like Thales thought that everything had a kind of soul. He famously said that everything is full of gods, meaning that life or consciousness could be present in all things. Similarly, the philosopher Anaxagoras believed that everything had a bit of nous, or mind, inside it. Even in Eastern philosophies like Buddhism and Hinduism, there are similar ideas about interconnected consciousness. In these traditions, it's often believed that the whole universe is alive and aware in some way. Panpsychism saw a resurgence in modern philosophy, thanks to thinkers like Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, who suggested that everything in the universe is made of monads, tiny units of mind or experience. Fast forward to today, and Panpsychism has found new life in scientific and philosophical discussions, with people like David Chalmers and Philip Goff arguing in favor of it. So, how does Panpsychism actually work? How can things like atoms or rocks be conscious? Well, there are different versions of Panpsychism, and not all panpsychists agree on the details. But generally, panpsychists believe that every bit of matter has a tiny basic form of consciousness, often called proto-consciousness. This means that consciousness exists on a spectrum. For example, imagine consciousness as a dimmer switch. In humans and animals, the light of consciousness is turned up high, so we're very aware and complex. But in things like atoms or rocks, the light is turned down very low, so low that we don't notice it. It's not like an atom has thoughts or feelings, but it might have some very basic experience, like a faint awareness of its surroundings. This view is different from saying that atoms or rocks are alive or thinking in the way we do. Instead, Panpsychism suggests that there is a tiny spark of experience in everything, which, when combined in complex systems like a brain, becomes the rich consciousness that we experience. You might be wondering, what's the evidence for panpsychism? Why do some philosophers and scientists take this idea seriously? One argument is the hard problem of consciousness, which I mentioned earlier. If we can't explain how complex matter like the brain produces consciousness, maybe consciousness was already present, even in the smallest particles. This could solve the mystery of how conscious experience arises. Another argument is that consciousness seems to be deeply connected to the physical world. Everything we experience, like sights, sounds, or feelings, comes from the interaction of matter. If matter can produce something as strange and powerful as consciousness, maybe it's not so strange to think that consciousness was always a part of matter. Philosophers also argue that panpsychism fits well with our scientific understanding of the universe. After all, we already know that complex systems, like weather or ecosystems, can arise from simple parts. Panpsychism suggests that consciousness could emerge in a similar way, from many tiny conscious parts combining into a complex whole. Of course, not everyone is convinced by panpsychism. There are plenty of critics, and they raise some important questions. One big criticism is that it's hard to prove. How can we test whether something as simple as an atom has consciousness? Since we can't measure or observe consciousness directly, it's tricky to find solid evidence for panpsychism. Another challenge is that panpsychism might seem counterintuitive. It's difficult to imagine inanimate objects having any kind of experience, even at a basic level. Some critics argue that it's unnecessary to assume that consciousness exists in everything when we can already explain it using biology and neuroscience. Finally, there's the issue of combination. If every particle has its own tiny experience, how do these experiences combine to form our rich, unified human consciousness? This question, called the combination problem, is one of the biggest hurdles for panpsychists to solve. Despite these challenges, many philosophers and scientists are excited about panpsychism today. Why? Because it offers a fresh perspective on one of the deepest mysteries of existence, consciousness. As our understanding of the universe grows, more people are starting to see that consciousness might not be a strange fluke limited to humans. It could be something deeply woven into the fabric of reality itself. Panpsychism also aligns with modern ideas about interconnectedness. Just as quantum physics shows that particles are deeply connected across vast distances, panpsychism suggests that consciousness might be similarly universal. If panpsychism is true, it could change the way we see the world. Suddenly, everything around us, trees, mountains, even the air, might have some kind of inner life, no matter how simple. This doesn't mean that rocks or atoms are alive in the way we are, but it does mean that they might share a connection with us at the most basic level of consciousness. Imagine how this view could change our relationship with nature. If consciousness is everywhere, maybe we'd treat the environment with more care and respect, knowing that we're part of a deeply interconnected web of life and mind. So what do you think? Is consciousness a rare phenomenon that only humans and animals have? Or could it be everywhere, hiding in the simplest particles of matter? Panpsychism invites us to rethink everything we know about consciousness and our place in the universe. Whether you agree or not, it's a fascinating idea that challenges us to look deeper into the mysteries of existence. Thanks for joining me on this mind-expanding journey today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on more thought-provoking content. See you in the next video.